Hey guys, John V from Phone Weenie here. You're watching our video comparison between the Apple iPhone 6 and the HTC One M8. You can say that these two handsets have some things in common with one another, especially in the design side. But beyond that, we're kind of curious to see how these two stack up against one another, whether or not one of the devices is going to overpower the other. We can agree that these two handsets have one of the best designs out there. They have premium written all over them. That's because of their brushed aluminum casings, which gives them a very sturdy and solid feel in the hand. However, the iPhone 6 is still thinner, lighter, and more compact than the HTC One M8. Over on the HTC One M8, we do like the fact that the antenna lines aren't as distracting compared to the iPhone 6. On top of that, you have dual front-firing speakers with HTC boom sound, so they project audio towards us, and it also features a micro SD card slot, so you can increase its storage capacity. As for the iPhone 6, it's worth noting that it has the Touch ID fingerprint sensor right here, which gives us an alternative method of actually unlocking the device. The antenna lines around the rear are a little bit more distracting than on the HTC One M8 just because they flank the top and bottom sides of the phone, and they are thicker too. And lastly, the camera lens here sticks out, so when you place it on a flat surface, it does kind of make the device a little bit wobbly, and on top of that, it's coming into contact with the surface. The average person looking at both displays probably won't realize the slight superiority in detail with the HTC One M8. That's because it's only visible when we look at them up close. The HTC One M8 packs a 5-inch 1080p Super LCD 3 display, which gives it a pixel density count of 441 pixels per inch, versus a smaller 4.7-inch Retina display of the iPhone 6, which chimes in at a pixel density count of 326 pixels per inch. Fortunately, the two displays are really good when it comes to reproducing colors accurately. They do a good job of that, but the iPhone 6's display is brighter. It taps out at over 600 nits, whereas the HTC One M8 is just a little bit under 500 nits. In all fairness though, the two displays here are exquisite, attractive, and they have some really high quality elements with them. Once again, with iOS 8 and the iPhone 6, it adheres to simplicity more than everything. You see that in its feature set and also the layout of the home screen. A very smooth learning curve. You have a great app selection too, and it's very reliable. Whereas with the HTC One M8, it really stands apart from other Android experiences thanks to its modern UI. It's very cool looking, it's slick, crisp, and on top of that, it's not overbearing with secondary software features, which is something we like because it kind of adheres to simplicity as well. Now for the average person reading a spec sheet, they might favor the hardware of the HTC One M8 more because it's packing a quad-core 2.3 GHz Qualcomm Snapdragon 801 chipset with 2 GB of RAM, which seems a little bit more enticing than the dual-core 1.4 GHz Apple A8 processor with 1 GB RAM in the iPhone 6. But we have to say the iPhone 6 chipset's based on 64-bit architecture, and that really lends itself just because in general it just has a more snappy feel with pretty much all operations than the HTC One M8. The M8 is still pretty good, very responsive even for gaming, but it just doesn't match the iPhone 6's snappiness. Thankfully, both phones are widely available here in the US through the 4 major carriers. Now, they both have 4G LTE, which is great for surfing the web. You get fast page loads and really good navigational control, but they also have very similar connectivity features. So you're going to have things like assisted GPS, you're going to have dual band Wi-Fi, you have Bluetooth 4.0, and you even have NFC on board. But the HTC One M8 benefits by having an IR blaster, which allows it to double as a universal remote, and that's something you don't get with the iPhone 6. We have something pretty peculiar with their cameras. With the iPhone 6, it packs an 8 megapixel iSight camera, which features an f2.2 aperture lens, a backside illuminate sensor, and a dual LED True Tone flash, whereas with the HTC One M8, you could see it has two different lenses. It's the dual camera. The second lens there is used to provide depth information, while the main camera is a 4 megapixel ultra pixel camera with a f2.0 aperture lens and a dual LED flash. As much as we appreciate the ability to apply that bokeh effect post-shot with the HTC One M8, in terms of overall quality, it can't beat out the iPhone 6. The iPhone 6 is just by far superior. The biggest thing here is with details. You get a lot more with the iPhone 6. So you have flexibility in cropping it later on. And with the HTC One M8, it tends to saturate its colors a little bit. Both take still very nice looking outdoor shots, but the iPhone 6 is just exceptionally better. Under lower lighting conditions, the same thing applies. The iPhone 6 is better equipped at that. It's less noisy, and generally speaking, the images too are sharper. Furthermore, the iPhone 6 also records the better looking 1080p videos thanks in part to its digital image stabilization, so it's less shaky compared to HTC One M8. And again, details are just a lot better looking with the iPhone 6. It has a really smooth continuous autofocus, and just in overall quality, it beats out its rival. The music players on both handsets are pretty nice, but we find the Sense music player a little bit more appealing just because you have a visualizer option as you're playing a song. So not only you have an audio experience, but you also get a nice cool visual. As far as the audio output, it's surprising because the single speaker of the iPhone 6 is able to match the HTC One M8's dual front-firing speakers with HTC boom sound when it comes to overall volume output, but the HTC One M8 set are just still more ideal because they're front-firing, they're loud, and they have a really nice crisp tone to them. Naturally, both are equipped when it comes to playing high-definition videos, but we prefer the HTC One M8 more because the overall package is ideal. You have a larger high-resolution display. On top of that, you have front-firing speakers, which is really good for the occasion. We really have no complaints with call quality in either device because they're excellent for the occasion. You have really strong outputs with their earpiece, and there's not a whole lot of distortion with either of them. So when it comes to having conversations, they're very pleasant. Longevity is in the bloodstream of the HTC One M8. It beats the iPhone 6 in the battery life department. Running our benchmark battery tests, the iPhone 6 pulls out roughly 5 hours and 22 minutes, which is an average result, whereas with the HTC One M8, it puts out a more impressive 7 hours and 12 minutes. If cost is a major factor in your decision, you probably want to look into getting the HTC One M8 because by now, you could probably get it below the $100 on contract mark, whereas with the iPhone 6, you're going to have to at least fork over $200 for it. The more we looked at both devices, the more it became clear that they have pretty much very similar qualities from their designs, their software experiences, and their performances. So you honestly can't go wrong. With the HTC One M8, its Sense 6.0 experience is pretty simple, intuitive, and has a modern look that really appeals. With the iPhone 6 and iOS 8, it's pretty intuitive, it has some added new features, and still a pretty decent experience on its own. So you really can't go wrong choosing either device. So if you guys want to learn more about either device, you can check out our website, phonearena.com. It's John V. Thanks for watching.